All right, so last week we did talk about captioning, and so now we're going to move over to another sensory concern that some individuals have, which is vision loss. And so that would be for alternative text, or what you hear is alt text, or audio description. So these are things that would help people with some kind of vision loss. They can also help people that are on the spectrum as well. So it's really nice to have these for all of our visitors. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. Again, this was made back in 2021 when I was at Kennesaw Mountain. So that's why you will see all the references to the Civil War and that there. We did these two slides last week, so I'm not going to go through them, but just as one, I guess, announcement or hope is that you not only do this now professionally, but you also do this in your personal lives with all of your videos and all of your pictures, and take it back to the classroom as well, because this helps everyone. And it will also, the more we share it, it becomes a norm. And then that's what we want this to be, is to be a norm for everyone. And this is just a part of making videos or a part of sharing pictures. So that's kind of my plea. All right, so we're going to start here on this slide. This says, did we skip a slide? Hang on a second. I feel like we skipped a slide. We did skip a slide. Aha. Okay, so I'm like, well, you need to know the difference before I go into alt text. So alternative text, or what you always hear as alt text, and audio description is what you hear as AD. They are essentially the same concept, and that's why I present them together. And it's really important to understand alt text before you try to jump into AD, or audio description. Because alt text is going to be a little bit easier because things aren't moving. So alt text is to describe what you see in a still photo. So those are the photographs you take. You are describing what you see for an individual who can't see themselves. Whereas audio description is the same thing. You're describing what you see, but this isn't anything that's still. It's a video or it's a live performance. Okay, so same thing, describing what you see. Alt text, you're doing it in a still photo. Audio description, you're doing it in something that's moving, a video or a live performance. Okay. So to understand alt text means that you are also understanding audio description as well, because again, it's describing what you see. So with our alt text, I have up on the screen not so good examples and a good example, and this is just generic. So we have not good examples. We have two of them up there. The first one is, this is an image of, when you're talking about pictures. We never want to start with this is an image of, or this is a picture of, because our screen reader is already going to say that. And a screen reader is the automatic robot that's in the computer that is reading what's on the computer to the person who is blind or visually impaired. So if we wrote in our alt text, this is an image of, the screen reader would literally read, this is an image of, this is an image of. Really redundant. So you just start right away with the picture of your description. The second non-good example is female ranger in uniform with brown hair holds a da 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 da. The reason this is typically not a good example is because most of the time we're not focused on these very minute details, particularly the brown hair. Most of the time, unless you're talking about the hair color of the presenters, most presenters in the United States have brown hair. Okay, then it's really important that you include brown hair in your alt text. But if that's really not the case, then the color of their hair is not a detail you need to include. Okay. Sometimes I would say probably 85% of the time, you're going to have character limitations on your alt text. You'll want to describe everything and it'll stop you. You're like, you have 2 characters left. I have like 5 more words I want to say. So you have character limitations, and then in audio description, you have timing constraints. So you can't describe everything. So you want to make sure you are describing only the purpose of that picture or the purpose of that video. So a good example here is female ranger stands in front of a trifold display in Hands a Girl information, acronym STEM displayed in background. And so this would be a picture. If I was talking mainly about alt text, I would show you the picture, but this would be a picture of a ranger that is exactly that. She's standing in front of a trifold. It was in a library, and she is passing out information about the National Park Service. To make this even better, instead of information, I would probably say hands a girl a brochure or a poster, exactly what it is she's handing them. So again, what you see, kind of by saying information, I'm interpreting a little bit, so what do you see? I see a brochure being handed. I see a trifold being handed. So that's what you want to display. And again, going back to the purpose, we'll see in a second, there are so many different ways to alt text or audio describe a picture or a video. There's no one right answer. Okay, it's an art. It really is an art. And so you really have to look at what's the purpose of this picture. Why did the creator add this picture? Or why did the editor put this piece of the video in this section of the video? Well, it's because they're talking about girls in science, and all these people in this video are girls. Well, definitely in your description, you need to be talking about that they're girls. Whereas if the focus was on kids in science, then I may not talk about girls. I'm going to talk about that they're all kids in this picture. So that's what I talk about when you have to talk about choices, making choices as to what you describe and what you don't. Okay, so now we're going to get into nitty gritty here. When we're looking at pictures, or we're looking at video, when you're looking at pictures, you have what's called captions, which is usually under the picture, and it gives you more information. It interprets that picture for you. In video, sometimes you have little thought bubbles, the little cartoon thought bubbles that give you more information about that piece of the video or about what that character is thinking. That would be the same thing as captioning. Okay, it's interpretation. Caption is interpretation. Alt text, audio description, absolutely beyond a measure of the doubt, stay away from interpretation. You only describe what you see. Okay, so sometimes that can get tricky. So we look at this picture and the question asks, is this a caption or is this alt text? So we have this picture here and it says, Union soldiers fire their guns. What do you think? Would that be a caption or an alt text?
I think it's a caption.
Okay, and Jan, why do you think it's a caption?
Because it doesn't describe what's actually there for someone who can't see the picture. You would need to say a group of individuals dressed as Union soldiers fire guns in front of a forest or in a field or something like that.
Yes, that would be a much better description because it tells you a little bit more of what's in the picture. The one thing you did say was dressed as Union soldiers. So that's the big part we want to really analyze what you're thinking. Because
so would you want to say
Union? Go ahead.
Would you want to say dressed in blue uniforms with?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. You see blue uniforms. You don't see Union.
Okay.
You're interpreting Union because in your head, you know that blue uniforms mean Union soldiers.
Right.
So my daughter's preschool teacher would always say, when someone would answer the question before someone had a chance to answer, they would say, don't steal her brain. That's what I think about all the time with this. Don't steal the blind person's brain. Let them interpret for themselves.
Okay,
Okay. So you're going to say they're wearing blue coats. And
Right.
now that blind person can say in their brain, oh, they're wearing blue coats. They must be Union soldiers.
yeah,
Right? Just like a sighted person is making that connection in their brain, building those synapses, making those connections. If we say there's Union soldiers in that picture, the blind person never has to do that thinking,
right.
and they're never going to continue to make that connection.
All right.
So this is a small piece, but it's a big piece. That is a big piece of alt text is, and audio description is, what do you see, not what you interpret.
Okay.
Does it make a difference, the context at all? Because if this is in a piece about Civil War
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking about Union soldiers, or it's been discussed, could you say Union soldiers for this? Or still, I mean, what does the context have to do with informing what you say, I guess is what I'm asking.
A lot, yes. So if this was a standalone picture, you absolutely have to say that the blue coats. But if this is a video and you've already talked about blue coats and gray coats, and blue coats mean Union and gray coats mean Confederate, then yes, you can bring up Union. These are Union soldiers. Okay. But I would go back and forth, especially in a video, because depending on your timing, because again, you're constantly, you don't want to interpret for that person. Right? So you want to, if you have the time, blue coat, Union soldiers, blue coat, Union, go back and forth. So they're able to interpret just like a sighted person.
Would you add, or is it unnecessary to say that these are reenactors?
It depends again on your context, on what it is. And so the
Okay.
next picture, we're going to actually see this picture several times. So if
Okay.
we look at the next picture here, same picture. And so now the sentence says, white smoke lingers in front of a line of men who point long rifles on a grassy field. Okay, this is an alt text. Okay, this
Right.
is, this would be basically what we were just focusing on. They're firing guns. Well, how do we know they're firing guns? We know because of the smoke in front.
Right.
Okay, so that's why we say that white smoke lingers in front of a line of men who point long rifles on a grassy field. I did not talk about the man behind. I did not talk about what color uniforms they're wearing. I did not talk about the forest over there. So there's a lot of missing pieces in my alt text, in my audio description. But in my context, in what I'm thinking about, what is the purpose of this picture? If I know the purpose of this picture is to talk about, for this piece, to talk about the actual fighting, the guns they were using, this is what I'm going to go with. I'm not going to even talk about the reenactors.
Okay.
If I'm talking about National Park Service does living history, yeah, I'm going to say there, and that's the next one. Is it this one? No, it's coming up. Let me see. Let me get to it. Nope, I guess I didn't have it in here. But I would say men dressed in period costumes, because period costumes would mean that's living history. That's reenactors.
Right.
Okay. So again, think about your purpose, and then that's what you're going to put in there. Okay. All right. Let me go to the next one here. Okay. So this one, there was always an officer to call firing commands. Alt text or caption?
Caption.
Caption. That is an explanation. That's an interpretation. Okay. But if I go to the next one, one man watches a line of men from behind as they shoot their rifles. Do you see how this is alt text? And this is alt text based on the caption we just talked about. The caption was there's always a captain to call out commands. Well, now, because that was the caption, that's the context that Diana was talking about. That's the context. That's the purpose of this picture. Therefore, I want to make sure I describe that man who's standing in the back. And that's what my focus is going to be.
Okay.
So an audio description, you have maybe 2 to 3 seconds, especially if it was not planned ahead. If that's the purpose of that picture, that's what you're focusing on. Nothing else.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to stick to my notes to make sure I don't skip any of these. Let's see. Okay, so now we should be on 2. Let's see. Okay, 2. All right, so now we have a new picture here. So caption or alt text. Kids find bugs in the mud with magnifying glasses.
Caption.
Caption. Why do you think caption? There's one main clue in here.
Well, because it doesn't include the fact that there's a ranger there.
Yes, that's true.
And again, it's not really describing what you see.
Right. How do you know they're looking for bugs?
You don't.
That's an assumption. I mean, you're in the mud. And again, that's an interpretation. They're looking at mud. They're not what I see. I don't see any bugs in the picture.
No.
You may have had context earlier on. And if the context was, you know, there are bugs here, then and rangers like to show kids bugs in the mud, then I can say that.
Okay.
So now we're going to move to 2A. 2A, okay. So now we have group of kids and a ranger huddle on their knees and look at ground through magnifying glasses. Caption or alt text?
Alt text.
Alt text, much better description of what you see. Now I would actually, the word ranger is a judgment call. Again, depending on context, depending on who your audience is, depending on how much time you have. A ranger is an interpretation in my head. How do I know that's a ranger? Because he's wearing a flat hat. Just like the Union soldier thing.
Right.
If you want to steal your brain, there is a man or an adult with an iconic flat hat.
Right.
Oh, that's a ranger, says the sighted person. We want the blind person to have that same experience. So again, this is a judgment call. How much time do you have? How much space do you have? Okay, but best practice, if you have all the time in the world, all the space in the world, that really should be an adult with an iconic flat hat. Okay. To be girls focus on outdoor science activities. Caption or alt text?
That's the caption, but you don't know that they're all girls.
Right. They aren't all girls in there, right? So if that was the caption, then in my alt text, how would my alt text change? Right? From the previous one, I wouldn't necessarily put that alt text. This is the alt text for that picture, for that caption. 7 kids huddle around a ranger. The 6 girls look through the magnifying glass and the 1 boy looks at the ranger. Okay, so that's, I'm gonna make sure that's, yes. That's more focused because the caption was about girls. I want to make sure I'm including how many girls are in that picture. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I love in this picture that the boy's the one that's like, I don't want the bugs. I want to look up at this person.
And if you had already spoken about or had already indicated that this adult was a ranger, then you wouldn't need to change that. But if you hadn't, then you would need to say an adult wearing the iconic hat.
Yes, right.
Okay.
All right. So now that we know kind of the difference between the caption and the alt text, these are all alt texts now. But now we're saying the question is yay or nay. Do you think this is good alt text or not so good alt text? And again, alt text, it's an art. So there could be 100 ways to alt text a picture based on the context. But let's look at, does this give us enough information? Does this follow the format? Okay, so we have here, a cannon swings from a forklift as 4 men look at it. What do you think?
Well, for me, the first thing that I did was say, where's that 4th man?
Yeah, he's kind of
You can
hiding.
just barely see him over there.
I did the same thing.
Mhm.
I think yay on this one.
Mhm.
I don't really like the word swings, but coming up with a different one, I get it, so.
Mhm. Yeah, this would be okay. This would be okay. It doesn't give a whole lot of information, but you at least get the general idea. You also have active verbs. We want to make sure we always are as active as possible, because as the viewer, you're looking at something and you are saying, wow, is that really a cannon? Oh my gosh, they're carrying it on a fork. You're amazed. You want to give that same feeling to someone who is blind. Okay, so to say a cannon is attached to a forklift. Yeah, Jan's yawning. Exactly. That's not a good picture. Doesn't give that same feeling. So you want to use words that bring that person to the picture or to the video, that help them understand the excitement of it. Or maybe it is boring, you know? And also when we use the active present tense verbs, that helps in conveying that excitement. So we're using swings instead of swinging or is swinging. We want to use the present swings. Swung.
Well, for me, the word, and this may just be my own bias, but for me, the word swings would be, I'd replace that with hangs, because you can't really tell that it's swinging because this is a still picture.
Right. Yeah, I like that too. I could say hangs. And
Mhm.
again, that's where it's an art. It's really your I don't want to use interpretation, but you're looking at this
Yeah.
and you get to pick the words. So it's I often, when I'm doing this, I have a thesaurus nearby, because I want how many different words can I use to convey this. But at the same time, you want to be careful because you want to use words that people know too.
Mhm.
But I agree with Hangs, because you can't really, if it was moving, it would probably be swinging. But
Mhm.
I think what I was going with when I use swung is that it's in the air and they
Right.
were ropes. So you can almost imagine it swinging. But
Yeah.
again, that's a little bit of interpretation there. So,
Mhm.
all right. So let's move to number 2. I like this picture. You could do a lot of interpretation with this picture. Park volunteer sprays a spider on the grill.
I say no.
Why?
You don't know if she's a volunteer.
Yep.
The guy might have
Right.
just stolen a vest or something. The girl's just in regular camp. She looks like a camper.
Yeah.
Well, and you can't see the spider.
Right?
So
She could be cleaning that grill for
yeah, she could be
put food on
cleaning
it.
the grill, or she could be putting oil on the grill, or we don't know exactly what she's up to.
Right.
You know, who was a real close up and there was a huge spider, I'd understand.
Yep. And even then I would say points a aerosol can towards a large spider, or,
Mhm. Yeah.
again, however, if you have 2 seconds, sometimes you got to label those words rather than, expand it out.
Mhm.
And then Diana, you were also right with the park volunteer. We don't know. Yeah, you're right. They could have just picked that up off the street. So, yellow vest, green hat with a volunteer patch.
Mhm.
They look too happy to be around a spider, though.
Right. And if this was a caption about volunteers are often campground hosts, we're going to want to make sure we put the environment in there.
Yeah.
That this is, a flat, I don't want to say forest tree filled, but, with picnic tables,
Mhm.
an outdoor area. So excellent. All right. Number 3. This is a cute picture. Okay. So it says a boy plays with period costumes in a military tent. Yay or nay?
Nay.
Yay.
Nay.
Lots of interpretation. Yeah. You know, so even if I said a cute boy, still an interpretation. You know, because I think he's cute, but why do I think he's cute? You know, large
Well,
glass.
another thing is there are other people in the picture.
Yes. Yes. So, you know, describing the two people in period costume and the one young boy, you know, he's got a blue, almost like a squarish baseball cap. Maybe describe that as that's too big for his head. You know, these three people sit under a canvas tent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And this is, I believe, the last one about alt text. We have Georgia elementary school students are watching a ranger talk outside about a battle.
Hmm.
Nay.
Nope, too much interpretation again. Yep. So one, we don't know they're Georgia elementary.
Right.
You know, and they are watching a ranger talk, but how do we know about a battle?
Right.
But then also look at, is that present progressive, are watching?
Mm-hmm.
We want watch or
Right.
watches. Students watch or kids watch. Kids in, many kids in green shirts watch
Mm-hmm.
a person in an iconic flat hat point to the trees, point behind her, you know. So, all right, excellent. I'm confident that you guys have got this. Sometimes when you get going though, you forget and you get back into interpretation. I often do this with a group of people because we'll catch each other. Like, well, how do you know? You know?
Right.
Okay. And we have talked about this already, but this slide kind of reiterates it. Keep it factual, concise, and in the present. Okay. Determine the meaning. Why is this picture here? One picture can have 1,000 correct descriptions for different situations. Okay. Let the caption identify and interpret the picture. That's not your job. All right. Let's see here. Oh, so this next slide, alt text party, anyone? So this isn't particularly for this particular job, but I would say when you do things personally, when you're doing your pictures, it's always a good idea to put the alt text in the subject section. So if you go to the properties part of your picture, so if you right click on a picture and you go down to properties, when you get there, it'll say there's several sections and one of them will say subject. Put an alt text in there and that alt text will be carried with that picture wherever it goes. And that will be very helpful. Okay. I also have here put searchable text in the tag section. That's helpful for, you know, for people to search for pictures online. And that's also in that property section. And then I say this helps everyone because it really does. It's for search engines, but it's also for people who cannot see that picture or don't understand the picture. You know, people on the spectrum are not, they're not understanding what's happening in the picture. So being able to, for someone to describe it helps them to understand it.
Well, and I think about asking students to do this and the skill set it's going to take for them. They have to know the difference between inference and the main point of the picture, the reason for the picture, the purpose, which fifth graders put in slides that always don't have purpose. You know, we all do until you have to think about why is this here, and the language that you have to be aware of, the active verb. It's just a great skill set.
If we can get students to start using this skill when they're young, they'll already know it and they'll be using it naturally. So I love that. All right, so we are now going to move, since you are experts on alt text.
I'm not an expert yet. Hold on. Where it says searchable text, what does that look like?
So if when I'm two things. When I'm looking, let's say I'm on your computer and you have 100 pictures
Okay.
and you want to find all the pictures on flowers.
Oh, okay.
You can go to the search section and do the hashtag.
Okay.
You do the # or the hashtag,
Right.
and then put in your tag. So flowers, hashtag flowers.
Okay.
And then the search engine is going to look at those tags and it'll pull up all the pictures with flowers.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with people who are blind. But
Well, that's where I
it's
was
awesome.
going. Wait a minute. Yeah, because that's where my head was, and I'm going, well, how would they see it? What would they see? They don't see anything because it doesn't apply to them. Okay, I'm good.
Yep, it doesn't apply. I mean, they can search for, flowers too like that, but
Right.
as far as it being a specific purpose for them, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just an additional piece to convince everyone to do this.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the second thing is if it's in the tag section, if you end up putting it online, the AI will pick that up. And when you do a Google search for pictures with flowers,
Okay.
that will be more apt to show in the Google search.
All right.
All right. We ready for audio description?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So just like with captioning, there are 3 different types of audio description. Okay. So we have standard, extended, and embedded. And we're going to go through each kind, what it is, and give examples. Okay. So we're going to start with the gold standard, and that's standard. And standard, just like we have written on the screen here, is description is placed in the natural pauses of the video. Okay. Description is placed before the action happens. Or sometimes in a lot of our National Writing Project videos, there's like a still photo that pops up that someone's talking about. You need to talk about that either if someone's talking over it, talk about it before it or during it, if it's silent. Okay. If the action happens, like you're going to see a video of a gunshot, it's a cannon shot. You want to say, and then the cannon fires. Before the cannon fires, because you don't want to scare the person with a boom. And they're like, what was that? What happened? So it always goes before. And this type of audio description only happens when it's well planned before filming begins. So again, unfortunately for this project, these are after the fact. So you'll notice how hard it is. And Diana, you sent an email earlier saying it's changed the way you do filming now. Absolutely. Because you're going to start putting in more pauses, more silence in your videos, because you know how hard it is to do audio description now. So, yeah. Okay, so here's our first demo. This is Ranger Jake, and he is from Kennesaw Mountain in Georgia. And he's going to start talking. So he's explaining the situation of what you're going to see. And then we have this demonstration. It's a living history demonstration, and I'm the person doing the audio description in this. So what's happening in this video is Ranger Jake described what was going to happen. He described that there were, it was a reenactment. He described that there were 3 individuals dressed in period costume, and what those costumes look like. And he described the gentleman calling behind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an example of embedded, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But he set up the scene. So now as an audio describer, I don't have to do any of that. Okay. So in this film on the screen right now, you see 3 soldiers there. And as the gentleman calls out in the back, he says, load gun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he gives them like 2 seconds. So while they're loading the gun and there's those 2 seconds of silence, I'm describing what they're doing.
3 infantry soldiers, 3 living historians dressed in Union garb, standing in the field at the base of the Illinois Monument. the base of Cheatham Hill firing in roughly the same, we had to shift it just a little bit for safety and range safety, but roughly in the same direction it would have been firing on June 27th. So again, you're going to see a volley fire by these men. Pay attention to how they load and fire their weapons, so you kind of see how long it took to fire just one shot. And we will pick back up for the next one. So see you in a minute.
3 men stand backs to us at angle. Each holds a long gun, one end on ground and firing end straight up.
Attention, squad.
Men step feet together.
Shoulder, arms.
They lift guns to rest on shoulder.
Loaded 9 times. Look.
Set down end of gun, put right hand on waist satchel.
Handle, cartridge.
Open satchel, put object to mouth.
Tear, cartridge.
Tear object with teeth, spit, put object in end of gun.
Charge, cartridge.
Push object in gun end, pull metal rod slightly up and out of gun.
Draw, rammer.
Pull rod out, turn it around and prepare other end.
Ram, cartridge.
Push rod fully in gun end, take it out and turn it back around.
Return, rammer.
Push rod back into place at side of gun.
Prime.
Pick up gun near parallel to ground, rest back end on right waist, get bullet from waist satchel and put it into center of gun.
Ready.
Step back right foot.
Aim.
Put gun end to shoulder.
Fire. Cease firing.
White cloud of smoke drifts in front of guns, then guns to first position.
Shoulder, arms.
Welcome back.
I didn't have to stop anything. The natural pauses in between when he called out and then they did it, I was able to explain what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is standard audio description. That's the gold star. That's what we want. Okay. And again, that's how planning ahead can really, really help with audio description. So let me go to the next. Okay, this next example, let's see if you can hear this one. This is done, this is a professionally done NPS video. This was done by Dr. Joel Snyder, who is like the grandfather of audio description. If you ever want to learn more about audio description, take one of his classes. It's mind-blowing. And so he did this one. So let's see if you can hear this one.
A presentation of the National Park Service, U.S. Department of the Interior. In script, words appear as if being written. Trail of Tears, a drawing of a wooded area, Cherokee Nation, 1828. Then, an actual wooded scene. 2 children, a boy and a younger girl, run amid the brown leaves on the ground and the bare trees. Run, it's after us. Come back. Hurry, it's going to get you. The girl stumbles. Hurry. The girl stands and continues running, reaching a field of low yellow grasses. The boy reaches a cabin. The girl's grandfather is on the porch and a woman is weaving a basket at a tree. The boy runs past as the girl steps onto the porch.
And moving Cherokees out of their homes. If Cherokees did not go voluntarily, the Georgia militia used force.
Men with rifles break into a Cherokee cabin. The girl cries in her mother's arms.
Okay. So that's standard AD. So now the next type is extended audio description. And this type of audio description should be used very limited. And so this is when the video is paused, okay, while the description is occurring. So if you just cannot, you have to give, the purpose has to be in there and you can't get it in those 2 seconds that they gave you. Then you're going to have to pause that video and start describing, okay? And you use the screenshot of the last second of the video held on screen during the description. And the reason this is not optimal is because you can't play an audio described video and a non-audio described video at the same time. And so people cannot watch it together. Right? Maybe, for example, you have a student who is blind who needs that audio description and they have the audio described version at their desk. while everyone else is watching the regular version, the non-audio described version, they're not going to be at the same time.
Mhm.
So you're not going to be able to stop and talk to them about it, or family's not going to be able to watch it together. So that's why you want to try and keep it natural. So an example of this, again, we'll see if you can hear it. The fun thing about this one is this gentleman that's giving this presentation is blind himself. So I love this. And so he's a Civil War medicine expert. And so he's a volunteer at Kennesaw. And so you can kind of tell, because when he's looking for his instruments, he's feeling around his table for the different instruments. But watch, even if you can't hear it, you'll see that the video pauses. Okay. So he's going to talk about a surgery.
What type of injury you had?
See how it's paused right now? My voice is going like crazy
Next,
trying to
surgeon
explain
pokes his
what's
forearm
about to
with the
happen.
following 4 objects in order: a thin 1-foot metal stick with a 1/2-inch ball on one end, large metal rounded edge scissors, his index finger, and a 6-inch thin metal hook with wooden handle.
So let's say you take a wound to the arm. You would take this Melton's probe, you'd stick it into the wound, and you would feel the trajectory of the bullet until the porcelain tip touched the bullet. And then you'd know you were at the right spot. Then you take the bullet forceps, follow the trajectory of the bullet probe until you got to the bullet or projectile, and you pull it out. Now this would all be done sans anesthesia, so of course the soldier wouldn't be very happy. But once you got the projectile out, then you take your finger and you stick it in the hole, and you dig around to try to remove any other particulate, which for purposes of fabric and the like, you could use a tenaculum, which is a hook-like device, to pull out foreign material. This would also be used to pull out blood vessels like veins and arteries.
So the last one is standard or extended. So using any of those first two connected with embedded sections. Okay, so really embedded is a third type of audio description. And that basically means that the speaker in the video is describing who they are, what they see, and what they're doing. You're doing the audio description in the actual video. Okay. So the next bullet point here is most of the time this is not enough. People who use description need more detail than sighted viewers will tolerate. Okay, we do as sighted people, we're used to things going fast. And, you know, for the gentleman on the screen or the female on the screen to say, there's a forest behind me and it's really cloudy, and we can see that. We're like, okay, come on, get on with it. So it's embedded only really works if it's kind of a talking head kind of video. It's, you know, one person standing there and they're not really moving a lot, you know. So Diana, she and I did a video, the friendship video, and I was standing, I introduced the video and I was standing in front of the agate sign. So I embedded audio description there. I stood in front of the sign and said, my name is Tara Lynn, and, you know, I'm Ranger Tara Lynn, and I'm a ranger, but you can tell I'm a ranger because I have, and then I described what I was wearing in the iconic flat hat. I was able to embed it, get it into the video while still making it interesting, because I was really just standing there, not doing a whole lot. And so that can work. And the reason the title is standard or extended with embedded is that usually embedded is not enough, and you can put it with standard and extended. Because the friendship video, we had to do additional audio description, but I still embedded my part. You know, it's helpful. I love it when people embed, because that means those natural pauses, I could focus on other things. I don't have to go back and say what that person looked like, because they already described themselves, you know. So let me see what.
The
Uh-huh.
section we did on the friendship video where we took a still of the speaker and
Mhm.
then I spoke over it describing, is that a
Yeah.
mix of embedded and expanded?
So what that was is you did an extended AD because we had to stop the video where the gentleman, so either Gretchen Mead or Daryl Red Cloud, they were sitting there. And so we had to stop the video while they were sitting there, and then you described over it. So that's extended. Yeah. Okay. So this next video, again, this is a video of Ranger Jacob, and he does a really good example of embedded. This first part of the video, he's talking about the direction the soldiers were walking. And he literally, he draws a line with his hand, and he realizes at that point that he's doing this. And so because he's doing this a lot, he says, he draws his hand, and then you see him stop, and he goes, I'm literally drawing a straight line with my hand from north to south. And it was like, good job, Jacob. He embedded that audio description. He knew people who are blind can't see him moving his hand up and down. And there was a purpose for him to move his hand up and down. They're moving from north to south. So he wanted to describe that. That's embedded.
But Sherman's big plan on the battle during the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, picture this, if you will, the Confederate line stretching 13 miles roughly north to south. Okay, I'm drawing invisible things in the air, north to south, stretching all the way, again, 13 miles. Then the sting of this. So I'm holding in my hand a heavily damaged mini ball. Okay, and a mini ball was just the type of bullet that was fired back then. It is fairly squashed as it was either stepped on or actually hit something. Back then, you could see it's cylindrical in shape or cylindroconical with 3 bands at the base of it. And that was all designed for the way it fired out of the gun. These men were fairly accurate.
That's a mini ball that soldiers would fire out of their rifles. And so he literally brought it up to the camera, and then he described what it looked like. That's right there in the video, no stopping. We didn't have to add anybody else in that audio description. He just described it right in the video. And so that was a really good example of embedded audio. Something I like about embedded audio description too is you can have fun with it. So you're describing what you see, but you're also interpreting as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so another example I like to use with a friendship video, Diana, if you don't mind, something you had described at one point was there was a kind of I would call it a shack in the back behind where Gretchen was sitting. And Diana's original audio description said, this is Gretchen's favorite childhood playhouse. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if that was embedded, we could use that. If Gretchen said, behind me is my favorite childhood playhouse, and it's, you know, it's falling apart and but it's made of wood, that would be fine, because that's her talking. She's giving you interpretation while she's also describing what it is. So that's the fun part about embedded. That cannot be used as standard audio description because there was no sign on that playhouse that said, this is Gretchen's favorite. We didn't know that. So that's the difference between embedded and then, of course, standard or extended. All right. Does that make sense? Those 3 different pieces?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it makes me think, oh my God, whole bunch of stuff that needs to be different on several things I've done.
Yeah, it's just a different way of thinking. And now you know, moving forward.
It does really change how you do videos.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So, and that brings us to, you know, again, not for this project because we're doing videos that have already been done, but moving forward, plan ahead, use a storyboard. You know, include everything. What will I say? What is happening? But then also in your storyboard, put what's the AD for this section? How much time do I need to leave? You know, put that all in your storyboard, and that'll really be helpful. So that's it for the training on audio description. Now, this was part 1. So part 1 was, what do I say? Part 2 is now, okay, I have my script. I know what I'm going to say. How do I put it in the video? So next time we will talk about, this is your script. All right, you have your video, you have your script. How do I put those together? So next time it's going to be a lot more technical. So be ready for that. And, but at least we're not putting it together. So now you could just kind of think about the videos you will be doing, or the videos you have done, and how would you describe those?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Excellent.
Jan, you have your video, so if you want to write some of that out, and then we can take a look at it. I know that what Terilyn is so gracious and kind to do is she'll listen, or I would send her text of what I had typed, and she would tighten it up and do it correctly. Or even the video, I would do the video, and then she'd give me pointers on how to change what I had done, which I'm sure
Well,
there's.
the thing about the PowerPoint that I have is that I have the original PowerPoint that's
Yeah.
not in YouTube. So I could go back and work on the timing and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, you
Rather
can.
than, yeah.
Make
Or
the whole
it's
video.
I'll have to go back and look at it, because I was for some reason thinking you would do the video of Chris. I forgot about the entire yeah. It does help when you have the raw material. But
Yeah.
it's still hard, because when we did the friendship thing, it was post. And so even though we thought we had, please, and if I had to do it again, when we did the storyboard, there would have from the start been a section for audio description that the creator would have to put in.
Right. And that would have been very helpful for us to have known that at the time.
Yeah.
And I had kind of wondered about it, but I didn't ever say, so what about this captioning in business?
Yeah.
Oh, I took care of that, Jan. I talked about that quite a bit.
Just keep
So,
speaking up. Yeah.
It was all good. It's just it's comfort, right? And we know that as writing teachers. Teachers are scared of writing, and captioning is a little bit like out of people's wheelhouses, but not impossible to do, just like writing.
Right.
And so it's just a comfort level thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I like what you said too, Diana, about starting kids early on this. It's a good skill. It's applying the skill you're teaching in class. And then as they grow up, that this is just natural to them.
Oh, even on the captioning, I mean, I think of how particular they'd have to be with punctuation. Talk about learning the punctuation rules for captioning. It's great.
Yeah. And then for audio description and whatnot, you know, we were talking about captioning on where to watch watch your shows with captioning on. You can do the same thing with audio description. I would say all of your movies, your newer movies, anything 2015 on, if it's a video, it has to have audio description. And so if you go into your settings in the same place where you find the captioning, you will find a place that says audio description. Click on that and watch that movie with the audio description on. And that'll really help you understand what it is. My favorite is the Disney movie Frozen.
Oh, yeah?
That one audio described is, it gives you a whole new understanding of the movie Frozen.
Really?
So, yeah. So watch some of those videos with some audio description on. And of course, I'm going to send this to Diana right now so you guys can watch these clips and actually.
Okay. All right. I may have to watch Frozen.
Yeah, me too.
It really is fun.
Jan, can you get a better workshop than assignments than watching movies? I don't think so.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
I
So-
might have to go back and watch the latest Doctor Who on Disney Plus.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That would really be interesting.
No, it's really fun. And this is so it's about accessibility, but not captioning or audio description. Disney Plus has really gone just far and above in their accessibility. And they also have a button for ASL.
Really?
Yes. So you can have an ASL interpreter in the corner while you're watching the movie.
Cool.
It is really, really cool.
Well, good for
I
them.
want that job.
Yeah.
But all right.
All righty then.